I'm Christopher Burgess, the host for this, our 18th episode of Conversations from the Inside. I'm delighted to welcome DTEX Principal I3 Insider Risk Investigator Michael Barnhart today. We'll be talking about the DTEX system new and very unique report. The report is Exposing DPRK's Cyber Syndicate and Hidden IT Workforce. We're going to take a deep dive into North Korea's decentralized state-backed criminal enterprise driven by financial gain, espionage, and regime survival. Barney, let's have you share a bit about yourself and, from my optic, your background and experience, especially with the DPRK nation-state activities over the past few years, brings a unique optic and flavor to the table. And welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. So my name is Michael Barnhart. I go by Barney, and I've been doing intel collection for right at a little over 20 years now in some way, shape, or form, whether it be on the more of the human intelligence side, kind of doing that when I was back in the Army, and then switching over to signals intelligence, kind of getting out of that. Bounced around the government for a little while, bounced around some related government entities, and just kind of did a lot of contract work out there, and slowly kind of got into the cyber realm. I noticed that whenever we got into cyber, you had kind of everyone, it was a very rigid, you had everyone kind of, this is this unit, this is this nation state, and everything was all painted out. But everyone always kind of had a hard time with North Korea, whether it be just the black hole that it is, just from naturally how it's just kind of cut off from the rest of the world. It's just such a different nation state than you see anywhere else. And so there's always been kind of a lack of intelligence on them. And so what we did, me and a group of guys, we all kind of got together. We decided that we were going to, be the, not, don't help with the problem, kind of be more of the solution. So we were going to try to shift some of our focuses that we historically had and kind of focus on North Korea. We had this one major actor that we really dealt with, APT-43. We dealt with them over time. We kind of moved over different organizations, really started putting a better focus and a major focus on North Korea, setting up different types of teams and communities to focus on this threat. Switch over from there to APT-45, another cyber hacking group there. And from there, we really got into the North Korean IT workers, which is a big central part of this report here. We talk about the entire cyber ecosystem, but we really focused on the IT workers and just how no one was really tracking them or really talking about them as they should be. So that's kind of what brought us here today, and kind of the natural what we dealt with DTEX with more of the insider threat. So the fit was natural there. Perfect.
Well, thank you. I'd like to remind the viewers to leave their questions in the comment section below, and let's dig into the report. Perhaps you can share an overview.
Okay, so really the report, it's kind of broken down into almost quarters. We really kind of thirds. So the beginning of the report, it's all about the problem. This is what North Korea is. This is maybe a holistic approach to it. We have cyber, we have GeoInt, we have all this open source information, defector accounts. We have all the stuff that we know about North Korea. Let's put all of the combined knowledge together and actually focus on what the problem is. And I think that's the big thing for the first half, is that this is a problem. And we have 1.4 billion reasons why, with the last Bybit hack, why it's clearly a bigger problem than we're really leading on. It's a problem that we don't have a good handle on. And it's something that's affecting really a global scale, and how we need to take that approach and really shift it. And everything we're doing with maybe other nation states, maybe this one won't be the same, one size fits all approach. So we kind of just get into that, how they're not just there for criminal efforts. They are a nation state threat, both in the IT worker force and obviously in the nation state, the APT actors. We have another thing we wanted to focus on too, was just, we kept spending a lot of our day on, hey, who is this specific person? Who is this specific unit? Who is this one? What is this group called? And I felt like really a lot of people in the community, we would spend all day trying to figure out one specific attribution point, when in reality, we knew it was this larger RGB or MSS or one of these other military units that it was, and we weren't focusing on the problem. We were only focused on one little aspect of it and not actually taking care of the activity or the intrusion. So the first part's all about that. The second part's all really about the APTs. hey, this is who they are. This is kind of what they're called, the talent pipelines of what creates them, the historics of it all. And then the last part's really on the IT workers, how they really, you have the ecosystem as a whole and how they kind of sprinkled in and some of the mitigating efforts after that. So it's a long report, but hopefully it's entertaining, and we put some pictures in there to keep people's interest. It would me.
Well, I would say entertaining is an understatement. As someone who is long in the tooth in the human cycle and collecting intelligence and presenting it, this report provides a unique view. Three takeaways that I saw that you call out in the report is this is a national security challenge. And that North Korean operators are embedded in global supply chains. I like the fact that you emphasize waiting is not an option. Could you speak to that?
Well, I think a lot of it has just to do with the recent news and the recent efforts that are going on right now. So you have the Bybit hack that was major. You had a couple, just multiple supply chain attacks just a few years ago. Nothing that's going on, any types of efforts to actually counter them, nothing seems to be working, at least at a scale that's hemorrhaging the bleed. So I think that, especially what we come to in the sections that we talk about with 227, their implementation of AI. This is, the Bybit hack, the Axie Infinity, these hacks, these are all them almost normal, quote unquote. With the implementation of AI and how much more they're going to be able to do their operations, we don't have this time. Not to mention you have the physical stuff, what we saw with the AI suicide drones, and we have boots on the ground in Russia. So this is no longer cyber, this is a physical threat. And sure, that's kind of why we had to power through it.
Well, everyone strives for attribution.
Yeah.
And but countering this threat requires looking at the behavior.
Absolutely.
And that's not something you normally see within IT teams. So I'm going to go out on my limb here and say, to counter this threat, you require more than your InfoSec team to be engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have your list. And we did this too with some of the ITAs that we had, where we had sent out IOCs where you can actually go and hunt. And that's great. And those are things that someone else has already found. That's why it's an indicator of compromise.
Sure.
The behavioral aspects is going to be the indicators of actions. And that's something that our software does, and that's something that we will focus on. You might not have that email address, you might not have that IP address, you might not have these things, but you can identify behavior. Hey, they're doing this. This is a part of their playbook, and being able to identify that means you might not have any of these lists, which we put out in our stuff too, and there's links to it here. You can always at least count on the behaviors, even if you don't have those lists, because you can pick them up different ways. And then also just having that know-how too, and be able to talk to people. Hey, this is what bad looks like. I can only look for it for so long. You help me look for it too when you're out there doing your screenings.
Well, you made me chuckle because my father always said, "Son, you aren't useless. You can always serve as that bad example." So yes, we know what bad looks like. But you also make a comment that the APTs and the IT worker, that the distinction is obsolete. What does that mean exactly?
Well, just how fluid and hybrid their operations are. Not every APT or major cyber hacking group is, they're also called your Andarials, APT 45, your traders, the guys for the Bybit hack. Not everyone's going to interact with each other. I mean, these APT operators might hop around from APT to APT, and that's something we disclose in there. And, there's going to be overlaps magically. This thing that these IT workers are on is suddenly getting hacked by this group, or insider information or something more malicious. They blend over so much, and the IT workforce is so spread out across so many organizations. I mean, in the UN reporting, you can see that the Department of Education and the Ministry of Atomic, whatever they're doing, they have IT workers too. So the fact that every outfit seems to have their own IT working workforce, it kind of makes you focusing on, hey, I don't need to worry about this APT actor. I'm worried about these IT workers. when in reality you might have overlaps for that. So being able to understand, the actual problem you have.
Which is the perfect segue to the next segment, distinction between the revenue and the malicious IT worker. Because you just mentioned they might jump back and forth. But if my history is correct, this effort started as a revenue IT worker initiative with the ancillary benefit of once you're in, malicious is available.
Yeah, it's and I think we've talked about this before, where like back in the 90s, you had your fake pharmaceuticals, you had your fake pills, you have the super note. This is a country or a regime. Just the fabric of their kind of how they run operations over there is so ingrained and so embedded with actual criminal activity. And we've seen that for years, for decades. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, and so the IT worker is just the modern day. We're in the techie age. We're in the modern day. So this is just what they're doing now. And I've said this before, where it's like if Furbies were still big right now, we would see them manufacturing knockoff Furbies because that's what was big at the time. And so right now, this avenue, this opportunistic approach, this is what the hand that they're dealt. That's where they get in at. Again, it's been going on for decades, it's for forever. But there did kind of come a time. It was at a point in the mid 20 teens. I don't know how we would call that, 2015, 2016 era. I need to figure out what that's called. They kind of switched over. You had your IT workers, and they were low level, and they were again a kind of a newer threat. But there was a point in time where one of the APT groups started seeing them as, hey, I know we don't talk to each other, and I know we're supposed to be hanging out with them or do anything, but have we realized that they have placement and access for places and operations that we need? Hey, do we realize that this IT, the cyber force that also kind of came through the same training pipelines as we did, they have stuff that they could definitely help us out with. I'm struggling over here. Hey, I need this one to go set up this account. I need this one to go do that. You have different levels of IT workers. And so, again, since you have so many spread out across the entire nation, or really how they operate, each one's going to be a little bit different, or not all are going to be built the same. So you have your lower level revenue generation guys just to get money. They're just there. They keep your head down. We don't care where you're located, what placement access you have. This is what you do. Then you have your more malicious guys. Those guys are the ones that might be tied or associated with a unit that might have those type of authorities. Hey, whenever you're done with that crypto project, steal all the crypto. Hey, extort that client after you're done with them. Hey, work with this APT a little bit closer, or have overlaps in some of your infrastructure there. There's so many different types of IT workers in this grand scheme that there's many varieties of an IT worker.
Sure. And I know we're going to be digging into the ecosystem in a little bit. But for reference, for those that aren't familiar with the North Korean methodologies, they've been criming for a long time. Their official missions abroad are required to self-sustain. You can do an internet search on North Korean illegal activities at embassies, and you will see a smorgasbord of the different types of criminal activities they've used. Again, you mentioned the super notes of the 1980s, 1990s, where they fabricated US $100 bills and put out hundreds of millions of them, caused the US to have to retool our $100 bill. And if you were living in Asia at the time, nobody took a $100 bill from you. The interview process is one of those iteratives where the use of Gen AI to assist in the interviews. Could you speak a little bit about that? Because I'm thinking the revenue players are just trying to land the gig, and they may not be the one doing the interview, may not be the one doing the job. I mean, that's a factor here. Once they land the gig, then it's a group activity, so everyone succeeds. But how do they use that Gen AI to assist during the interviews that might be a clue for folks?
Well, to go back to your last point too, it just came out, I think, last night or the night before last, where they were running illegal gambling sites and finding ways to do stuff like that. Again, that criminal element you're talking about. It's fascinating. The Gen AI is interesting, just how they're going to use it. There's one recently we had where the IT worker is in the interview and he says that his microphone's broken. And so that he will turn on his camera, which is, again, another clue that you're looking for. Don't turn your cameras on. Do turn them on. He will turn his camera on so you can see his face, but he will need to type it out. But he's a fast typer, so everything's going to be good. So they continue with the interview. And while he's doing it, he has the subtitles turned on the interview. And he's copying them and then right next to it, putting them in ChatGPT with preloaded prompts. Hey, answer this question as if I'm in a job interview. And they're loading them, and then they're going back through, copying them, and then pasting them in there. And it looks like he's typing. You can see the victim client, the victim company on the call, and it looks like they're just waiting for him to finish typing. When in the background, he's actually going through and getting all the answers offline. That's something that I thought it's kind of new. Again, they're trying to counter some of the things. They do read up on themselves, so they're always looking to see what's being tracked about them and how they're doing that. Again, also using altering faces. We've seen them take their own image and they will go and alter it using a variety of different apps that they want. We've also working with our partners and some of our trusted third parties. They've seen them using, or not seen, but heard them using voice changers on phone calls to emulate females' voices. Again, many different ways that they're picking up on technology to help their own advances.
Anyone looking at the nation state activity within LinkedIn is going to be familiar with AI enhanced images of fictitious individuals or real individuals with multiple personalities, or aliases. Maybe they don't have multiple personalities like Sybil, but they absolutely have aliases. How do the revenue IT worker and the malicious IT worker, two distinct groups, how do they measure success?
I would say that they're two distinct groups, but there's been times where, again, working with some of our partners, where you've seen one go off grid and just turn to, or go rogue to try to impress a family or try to increase family stock back home.
Or maybe they were fired and now they've lost their money. So
and
maybe we talk about success, and then when success is fleeting, how they change their behavior.
Definitely the success is calculated in dollar amounts. Like, there are quotas that they have to reach. And at one point in time, we were watching a certain quota that came up, and that was a lot, even for just standard, just daily life in America. I'm like, wow, that's a pretty hefty paycheck that you have to acquire every month. And then you've seen them double and triple over time. So it's all dependent on the mission. Again, most of them, since they are revenue generation, it's going to be that. If the malicious guys are still part of revenue generation, but might go about it a different way, such as extortion, you're looking just the dollar amount and how much you're actually able to bring in. That is the bottom line on the IT workers as a whole for what they actually have. The APT operators are going to be different, of course, but these ones are.
I think it's important that we help the viewer understand that bringing money in is the salary or the agreed upon contract remuneration, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Because bringing money in could be, we also know that they go after the criminal elements and they suck their Bitcoins out. So that's a different revenue generation.
Yeah, it's the dollar amounts. Yes.
Okay, so the dollar amounts that they have to generate is based on they're getting the gig for a certain amount or getting a number of gigs that total that amount.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. So I'd like to remind viewers, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. And let's now talk about this new research center that the North Koreans are standing up that's focused on artificial intelligence and the ramifications of that. I understand that they set this up in February 2025. So it's only a few months old for them. But the AI charge has been going on for at least a year and a half, 2 years. Are they catching up, or are they just codifying it?
Well, also too, the fact that when it was set up as well, because a lot of it just came from the reporting that came out in 2020 in February. How long has this thing actually been up? And then we just didn't know about it as well.
Okay.
So I wonder how far actually advanced they're going to be. And as we're seeing, they're pretty squared away. If they're at the point where they're producing AI suicide drones, then that seems like they're getting that whole AI thing pretty down pat. The thing about is that, again, back in the day, back during the COVID times, we would watch these units be built, and it was come from pre-existing APTs, and we would watch this COVID-centric unit be built, and we didn't know what we were looking at. And then open source information comes along and kind of fills in the gaps. And that's also a big part of the report too, is taking all intelligence, no matter what it comes from. Just because you work cyber, other things can help. So this open source information definitely helped and show us that what we were watching was the birth of a kind of a new ad hoc effort or a new unit as a whole. We take that same framework, and then we started watching this big run on AI. The APTs had their focus on drones. They had a couple of them where they had the things they were looking out for. You had a dedicated effort on the AI front where you had these IT workers that clearly were distinct, and they seemed to be a different type of cluster that were just sometimes more advanced or did different types of maybe malicious activity, including intellectual property theft. You started seeing all these things happen, and then you're seeing even the IT workers almost complementing some of the APT work and looking for some of these drones and stuff like that, and these drone technologies. And you always, again, working with our partners, they had made a focus that AI is going to be a prized possession. It is a gem for North Korea. Again, it's going to help with everything that they do, both domestically and on their weaponry.
Aren't they? Don't they have a sustained effort to bring on the cream of the crop to this organization?
Yes. Yeah. And the where it's located at too is going to help that, because it's located. This new unit is supposed to be allegedly located in this district, which is housing two major cyber hacking universities. Kim Il-sung Military University, and then also the Kumsang University.
So just through osmosis, they've got a leg up.
Yeah, and the way the talent pipeline works already, where you're going to get that, and this unit is supposed to be a subordinate to the RGB, and they're already getting the cream of the crop as
already is. Information warfare capabilities exist.
Yes, absolutely, and it just the way it's all laid out and the timing of it all, and just being able to see this entire thing being built, and you can kind of see that there's a couple hypotheses being built, and like what this unit's going to be for, whether it be its own AI. We already know they're trying to build just with their own philosophy of how to have it internal to the country. And you can actually, that Juche philosophy, everything needs to be internal to the country. So it seems like they're definitely taking that on.
How much of this is being driven by the fact that the leadership of the country has their eye on it?
Absolutely. I think you can have all your missions set up, the traders for this mission. This one is for this mission, all of this. If the leader he wants to watch NBA on some stream, the APTs are gonna fall over themselves to get what he needs. And so, yeah, you will see that, and you've seen that many times where they'll just split off, target agriculture because there's a famine going on, do this guy because he said something bad in the news. You do see those spin-off efforts.
I'd like to let readers know that inside the report on page 8 is an org chart of the DPRK cyber to physical layout. If you're not familiar with the North Korean target and how they target you and with what organizations, that's a great chart that you develop there. It really helps the layperson understand what's what and where they are, big picture, not too granular, but enough so that you can understand as we talk about RGB, the information warfare capabilities, and this new RC227. Let's now talk about the IT ecosystem, the IT worker ecosystem. everything that's involved. Those of us who have been following this since about 2022 and writing on this, one of the big breakthroughs in understanding the totality of the ecosystem was the Chapman case, where an individual was indicted. She subsequently is pleaded guilty. She was facilitating 300 separate IT workers, and she was also involved in the logistics aspects. And I think if we have our viewers go to page 35, figure 12, which shows the syndicate players and how it all weaves together, they'll be able to follow along easily as we discuss this. But there's so many moving parts that you're just not relying on one person in the DPRK system to support it. You're also requiring and recruiting non-North Korean entities to make this machine work. Help us understand, Barney.
It's even looking at that the IT worker flow chart. Again, that flow chart, it wouldn't just apply to even just revenue generation ones. You could really that framework would work across the board.
Absolutely.
Even looking at it, it confuses me, and I feel like I have a decent grasp on that one. But it's and you can kind of piece it out too. So you have your people looking at the getting the identification. This is either a fabricated one. This is either a stolen identification. I think that might be probably one of the step ones. From there, you can then create your persona. I'm going to pretend to be this person. I need to create my backstops. Once you create the one persona, and as you can see the guy creating in the images, you can see him creating all of his different headshots for all of his different personas. Benjamin, you can then start creating those accounts. And again, that's where other people are going to start coming in too. You might have guys a part of this ecosystem that are going to, hey, I've already got your accounts. Just let me know what your name and what you're going to, it's going to
be. So
what
you're speaking of is the accounts is the support documentation or access to support a given alias.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a stolen identity.
Absolutely.
Or a borrowed identity. It could be a duplicate, or it could be made up of whole cloth, whatever floats.
Yeah. And then that one persona could have different things off it. So that one persona might have 12 different emails, just a different spelling of that initial persona's name. And you can have multiple IT workers running through that one persona. It all depends on how they want to cut it up there.
Well, one-stop shopping in the criminal world. Steal it once, use it 12 times.
Yeah. And then, we have some where an IT worker might run up to 7 to 10 different personas, different types of infrastructure. Again, referring themselves when they get onto a job. But that's less of the ecosystem. That's more kind of their TTPs on this. Like you said in the Chapman case on this one, she would have been probably working, based on what we know from the indictments, she would have been working the farmer aspect. And then also the probably more the infrastructure acquisition aspect was actually grabbing and helping with some of the ID cards that were going on there. So there would have been a couple of roles that she would have played on this flowchart.
Let's go over the non-DPRK facilitators. Okay. They do recruitment. They help with the credentials. The laptop farm you just mentioned, they facilitate the remote access. Then there's the payment side of the equation, the W-2s or the 1099s, the bank accounts, the money launderers. So the money is only good if it gets back to the regime. So it's got to transition from banking to crypto to the regime, because you don't send it through SWIFT to North Korea, because they've got their own access to SWIFT. That's a lot of human recruitment that's required, extant from the IT worker just doing their job. This is not a small enterprise. This is a crime family type organization where you've got a department focused on making sure all the support elements are in place so that the IT worker can be successful.
Yes, and the organization of it all too, how they're keeping track. I mean, they've got to all make sure they're on the same page too. And there's so many of them out there. Sometimes you see them running into other IT workers in their own adventures, doing criminal activity. So, yeah, it's so organized, and yet they're the animosity and some of the more targeting of each other at times can happen as well.
Well, criminals targeting criminals should always be encouraged, but. The report mentions two items that I think are important for our listeners to take away here. One is overemployment to make their money or their target amount, and the freelancing to make their target amount. Could you speak to that?
So the overemployed aspect is, again, holding many jobs. I referred to one just a little while ago, talking about how one can be at one organization and even refer themselves to then work a second job at that same organization. Again, just trying to get as many jobs as they possibly could fit in their workday as possible. The freelance thing is interesting because they adapt as we adapt, and it's a constant chess match in the stuff that's going on. So again, they were on a lot of these freelance platforms going and getting work. But now that people are catching on to that a little bit more, or looking for what TTPs and things that are available now, you see them actually leaning more into third parties, as staffing agencies, recruitment agencies. They're going to work with an organization that either they have as a front company and they're going to hire themselves out to organizations, or just one that they're friendly with that, hey, the verifications are pretty relaxed here. We believe you're who you say you are. We'll get you a job. So again, yeah, the freelancing is definitely an interesting way, because they have to get out there to get the jobs, but it is getting harder just to walk up and apply, again, because all of us are a little bit more onto the threat than we were in years past.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I'd like to remind viewers to leave their questions in the comments below. And we've discussed the report, but the meat and potatoes of the report, frankly, is steps that teams can take to counter the North Korean IT worker. They're human. They make mistakes. They have patterns. As someone who has spent a great deal of my life in the counter-espionage world, patterns and mistakes and being human are all to the benefit of those that are looking for anomalies and looking for human error, such as an individual has a name they're working with today, and they file their receipt in a different name. Happens all the time in the intelligence world. I'm guessing stuff like this happens with the North Koreans as well. So perhaps you can share, Barney, some quick takeaways on how you can check your own ecosystem, and then pre-employment and post-employment tips for our audience.
Absolutely. So even pre-employment, like even before you start getting into the point where, like, okay, I'm going to start treating this IT worker threat, I'm going to start, focusing on it. You can take something like with our the ITA, where we have the IOCs. That's something you can do like right now. So you can immediately, and we did it here at DTEX as well. So whenever we ran some of our own indicators of compromise and efforts we were looking for, over the past 2 years, we had seen that there were 87 hits along our applicant system.
All right. So you took emails that is in the ITA and ran those emails against your HR application and saw that 87 times emails in that group showed up as having tried to get employment at DTEX.
Yeah, and we're not a big company too. So this should be a kind of a wake up call for larger ones. That
the Chapman indictment said 300 entities had been penetrated, had been hired. Think of all of those that didn't hire someone.
Exactly. And I feel like it makes the problem that much more real too. Once you see it and you're like, okay, this is now a problem for me as well. Maybe I should care about this more. Or maybe I should focus on this.
Well, that's a great first step.
Yeah, and that's the first step. So I mean, you don't even have to do anything at that point. And there's many places to do this. There's a lot of open source information on IT workers out there that everyone's disclosing what they saw, so you can always run those indicators through your system before you do anything. Other ones for like pre-employment would be in the interview process and picking up are they turning on their camera? How are they adjusting too? This used to be a big one was Astro VPN. They had an affinity for Astro VPN. And with the notoriety and a lot of the stuff coming out in the news about how their love for Astro VPN, we're starting to see that shift a little bit more. But again, just looking for those VPNs coming into your HR system or to your applications, or even during the interview as a whole. Are you turning your camera on? Are you, hey, I'm sorry, we can't do this. I need your microphone to work. Because again, we're training up a lot more of the let me choose my words here. We're training up more of like how to find these guys, and they're trying to alter them. But even in that, you have a bit of a force multiplier by training up your HR staff. The fact that once they realize what they're looking for, then they seem to be hunting for it a lot more. And you've increased the footprint of people actually looking for badness.
So it sounds like assisting HR in validating technical experience claims, validating it's just not HR, it's the interviewing hiring managers across the enterprise.
Yeah, everyone involved in the hiring process should be in some way, shape, or form at least part of the threat intel discussion, saying, hey, they're coming at you guys first. You guys are the first line of defense. This is what bad looks like. Intel drives missions. This is it right here. You'll probably be seeing something like this. Go out there and let us know what you see. And it has been working. That's a really cheap a human behavior technique and human behavior mitigation that's working.
So verifying login IP addresses.
Yep.
Use of VPNs can mask some of that, can't it?
Yeah, and that's why creating kind of a database of what known bad is out there, working with community partners and intel sharing aspects, and people having a threat intel source to show you what these things are, so you can kind of bounce and correlate what you're seeing to stuff that's known bad will help too. Again, it's a layered approach. Hey, this flag happened. It doesn't mean anything by itself, but also this happened, and also this happened, and they won't turn the camera on. These are all things that you kind of start taking steps to kind of get to your final result.
Okay, so let's assume that there was a miss and somebody's been hired and they're doing hellaciously good work. They're producing, they're a star employee as far as you're concerned. There's really there might be some oddities, but hey, a lot of IT workers are odd. What should we be looking for post-employment that says this oddity might be an indicator that you've hired a DPRK IT worker and the team that comes with it?
I like that. Again, redundant, but also kind of what you did before you even started the process. Anytime you see newer reporting or new IOCs, again, rerun those. Say you're tracking, hey, if anything flags off these, whatever indicators you have, that's how I know one's coming into the system. But then also taking it and then actually looking inward for stuff that's already there and hunting. And then anytime you get new information, being able to look that up, not to mention behavioral technologies. That's a big thing too. Because even if you might not have something that you grounded, hey, this is badness that I'm looking for, at least they can be giving all the flags off to catch them while they're already inside. They don't join meetings. There's many different the usage and some of the stuff that they're doing. The work hours are really odd, and they kind of come in at different hours of the night, or they just all cram it in on one day of the week. Things that are just stand out from normal average behavior. When you start really compiling all those onto each other and doing an audit of your own network and suspicious remote logins and different types of VDI usage, it doesn't kind of quite match up to the things that you're already seeing, or match with the name of the person that's actually supposed to be behind that laptop. Those are all things you can do to hunt internal to your network as well.
So you could set up your system to validate who the individual is. So we're dealing with identity here in a nutshell. Who the individual is. Are they coming from where you expect them to come? Are they engaged when you expect them to be engaged? Are they ticking off the boxes that everyone else is ticking off in their group, i.e., if they're a W-2 employee, are they looking at health benefits? Are they looking at their pay? Are they looking at their, their tax withholdings? Are they doing the normal stuff? Are they engaging with employee assistance? Your corporation might have an outreach, and here you've got these 12 people who don't care, but they also have these other oddities. It isn't, having dealt with a lot of behavioral issues, it isn't the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bunch of little things that make the one thing saying this person warrants a deeper inspection.
And then
it's
also
like a nick of 1,000 knives that says, "Oh, I'm bleeding."
And then you factor in the third party contractor aspect and how you can't quite get that visibility into what they're doing, and then you're outsourcing your risk to that. That's another aspect. You baking in language into your contract saying that they have to verify and they'll do this, stern language. It's
absolutely
weird.
When your vendor compromises you,
yeah,
because they didn't have the same hygiene you had in their ecosystem. That sucking sound is your future going out the door. It happens. Unfortunately, it happens far too often. What about leavers? I want to close up this post-employment part. So let's assume that the project's over, or there's a restructuring. This group's gone. Everybody here, we see it all the time. A large cybersecurity company said 5% of our workforce is going to be let go. We can focus on this. We're not going to be focusing on this. We're helping these people find new jobs, and away you go. But now you've put this individual in a survival mode because they're not making their nut. They're not able to draw in. So what are some of the reactions we see to that?
Well, it's interesting because in years past, you wouldn't see that type of hey, I'm a disgruntled employee, I'm going to extort on my way out the door, because that's the type of law enforcement that would draw law enforcement. And that's something that they don't want to do. Usually if they get cut from a job, that's something you might see. Okay, well, I'm going to put my head down and go quietly and come back as a different persona. Again, not letting law enforcement get involved. We have seen that shift over the years, and they are leading to more extortion attempts. If they get fired or caught or discovered too quickly, oh man, I did all this work for this one client. I need to extort them. I need to come back because I need to make at least what I would have made this year had I did stay on this client, and try to extort them that way. Whenever you're terminating an IT worker, again, making sure that you understand your ecosystem, especially if it's your environment. Hey, what access do they have? Let me limit this. You don't want to, act too quickly for fear that they might extort. In the past year, we've seen them really following through on some of their extortion attempts, where they're actually going through and, posting some of the sensitive data that they did sell open to the public. So I think keeping that framework in there, and again, also compartmentalizing your environment, especially when it comes to third parties or entities that you might not trust, or new hires for that matter. Again, you don't want to give the keys to the castle to the guy that's been at the company for 3 weeks. That's
very consistent with the Poneman report on the cost of insider risk, which said leavers leave and they take their goodies with them. And so let's plan for that and then be pleasantly surprised when they don't.
Yeah.
I think it's a safe assumption. Well, we're running out of time here. I'd like to invite you to share some closing thoughts on the importance of focusing on the DPRK IT worker and their, be it revenue generation or malicious in support of the APT efforts for the audience. And This has just been a great discussion.
Thanks. Thanks. I think I'll have, maybe kind of 3 quick points. One would be just about the placement and access. We got to think about North Korea. Have they ever, lashed out in the past? Yeah, Sony has shown us that. Dark Soul has shown us that. Now with these IT workers, and as we're seeing how they're kind of sprinkled over the larger ecosystem, then with their placement and access, what could they do if push comes to shove? And seeing that they've done something similar in the past should raise that urgency level. Another thing I want to kind of a thought is just the scope of it all. There's the IT workers, you see them everywhere. They affect so many different organizations. And I think people just, they might seem immune to it. But just being able to see on the inside and where they're at and where they're shifting to is big. And I think the last thing would be just banking. Traditional banking, as we start implementing like blockchain technologies and knowing that the IT workers and APTs are really embedded in that industry, as we implement them, we might be implementing risks too. So just kind of be looking for North Korea is definitely looking for all of us to get on this blockchain board so they can really start attacking a little bit more. So I think that's a fear that we all have.
Well, let's take a deep breath. If you're sitting here and listening to this and you're trying to think of ways to exclude yourself as it's not relevant to you, it's a big miss, because I've heard it said a number of times, if you're not finding the North Korean IT worker in your ecosystem, you're not looking. And at least their attempt to join you. And I think this is where this report is going to be of tremendous help, as well as the indicators of compromise that DTEX is sharing. So I'd like to thank you, Barney, for walking us through this unique and timely report. This report may be acquired by scanning the QR code or clicking on the link in the comments below. And as always, the Insider Threat Advisory will have up-to-date materials, including the indicators of compromise emails. Join us on June 25 for the next episode of Conversations from the Inside. All episodes of this program are available for replay on Spotify. This is Christopher Burgess, thanking all of you for joining us for these Conversations from the Inside. Now go and have your own conversations.